What's up, everybody? Good late morning or early afternoon for some of you. And since we're taking a little bit of a break from the free agency videos today because of the combine starting off, I want to take the opportunity to dive in a little bit into what the general holistic strategy for the Seattle Seahawks should be this offseason. Because I'm always seeking to understand things, I'm always trying to understand things in the NFL, and I'm trying to understand the perspectives that some fans might have. And the fan base in Seattle seems, I don't want to say split, but there's definitely a pretty big divergence of takes on where this team should go from here. And I think that is best characterized with the whole Geno Smith thing, because when we decided to presumably commit ourselves to Geno Smith firmly for the 2024 season, like we did the other day when we restructured his contract, there were a lot of people who were very happy about that, but there are also definitely people out there who hated it. There are also people out there who didn't understand it, who didn't get it. And when I look at those people and I look at what they're saying and I look at their perspective on this, what I generally see is people who think that the team needs to not tank. I don't want to misrepresent them. I don't want to sit here and say, oh, they think the team should just try to go 0-17 for 3 straight seasons until we build up the roster with number 1 overall picks and high picks, and then we go 17-0 in year 4. They're not saying anything like that. I do think there are some people out there who seem to think that that's how it works, but I'm seeing plenty of Seahawks fans basically saying, well, the team needs to take a step back in 2024, accept a not very good season to get rid of some of these guys they don't need and don't need to be here anymore. And then 2025 is the year where they really try to get back on track. So basically, they want to use 2024 as a throwaway season, not a tank season necessarily, because you're never really tanking, but you do sometimes decide, you know what, we're not going to go for it this year. And to be clear, I don't really think the Seahawks should fully go for it in 2024 because they're not going to have massive free agency freedom, and they do need, to a certain extent, proof of concept whether or not this coaching staff can work because so many of them have no experience. I totally get that. But throwing away a season and using 2024 as like a gap year, a throwaway year, is a different level. And I want to talk about why I think that would be a very, very, very bad idea. So, the foundation of that concern and complaint from a lot of these fans seems to be the idea of keeping Geno Smith around. They say we should just get a quarterback who we know is going to be worse than Geno, like Drew Lock, or a rookie. Because any rookie we're going to get is not going to be as good as Geno in year 1. We can pretty much all agree on that. Even these people who don't like Geno very much are aware of that, but they go, well, we can get a better draft pick, and in the meantime, we can also learn about some young quarterback and find out whether or not they're going to be somebody we can build around in the future. Like you could get J.J. McCarthy, and that first year he's not going to be as good as Geno for sure because he'll be a rookie, but year 2, year 3, year 4, maybe he'll blow into a star or a superstar. He'll blow up. Same for anybody you could get. Penix, Nix, Rattler, whoever it may be. A lot of people look at that and they go, I think that's the path forward, so why are we keeping Geno? Why are we committing ourselves to Geno? And I think to understand why that is the case, first, just on a very basic level, we need to understand that people in the NFL, coaches, general managers, front offices, they do not like to throw seasons away. They're not like us, because we fans who aren't working in the NFL, who don't have a job in the NFL, we sit here and play Madden, okay? I don't play Madden because Madden sucks, but a lot of people play Madden. And in Madden, what do you usually do when you start franchise mode? You trade away all your good players, and you tank for 1 year, and you get the number 1 overall pick, because you're trying to build a team that is exactly the way you want it to be. And it's Madden. Who cares if you go 0-16 or 0-17 for 1 season, right? It's Madden. You're not going to get fired. The game is not going to delete itself because you were too bad at your job. You can go 0-17 for 30 straight seasons and the game's not going to delete itself. But in the real world, coaches are not into that stuff. General managers are not into that stuff. They're trying to win as much as they can at any given point. While they might occasionally take a little bit of a step back, they're never interested in just being terrible. The few times that we know or suspect a team has actively tried to be terrible, it's been big news because it almost never happens. Like the Dolphins a few years ago when they were supposedly bribing their coaches to tank. So that doesn't ever really happen. And when it does happen, it's so rare it becomes the biggest news story of the season, like it did with the Dolphins several years ago. So in the real world, tanking is not really a thing in that sense. And taking a step back, while it does occasionally happen, I don't think it happens nearly as much as people perceive. People are trying to keep their jobs. People are trying to keep fans intrigued. People are trying to keep fans buying tickets. But more importantly than that, look at this roster. I really want to talk about the Seahawks roster as of right now. Let's just take a look at the players the Seahawks have who are good and interesting, who are still, as of right now, under rookie contracts. You have K9 and Charbonnet. I would throw Charbonnet in there, even though I know that he probably doesn't have superstar potential. He does clearly seem to be a guy who's clearly going to be able to do the job that we expected him to do when we drafted him. You've got JSN. You've got Charles Cross. You maybe still have Abe Lucas. We don't know what's going on there. Could go one way or the other. But we know that when Lucas is out there, he's been good. He's been really very good, given the fact that he was a rookie for most of his playing time so far. You've got Boye Mafe, who had a breakout year last year. You've got maybe Rick Woolen. I don't know where Rick Woolen's career is going right now, but you've got Woolen, who had a phenomenal year 2 years ago and was still pretty good last year despite some of the problems. You've got Devin Witherspoon, who had a monster rookie year, was one of the finalists for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And by the way, that's not even including guys who are clearly on a different level but still are providing good value, like Jake Bobo and Trey Brown. I would include Trey Brown in there as well. There is a lot of young, promising talent that has shown out on rookie deals in Seattle. And I didn't even include Derek Hall because he hasn't shown anything yet. I didn't even include Anthony Bradford because he needs to show he can be more consistent. I didn't include Cameron Young because he needs to show he can do more with a bigger workload. Kobe Bryant I also didn't include. But those guys all have opportunities to show that they're valuable pieces going forward. And it's very realistic to expect some, most, or even all of them to do that. So there is a lot going on this team that is young, that is promising, that is good, that is cheap. And when you willingly take a step back by weakening yourself at the most important position on the field, the quarterback position, which, make no mistake, that's what you would be doing if you move off of Geno Smith now. Nobody you get is going to be better than Geno. Everyone you get is going to be worse. A lot of them are going to be significantly worse. You are damaging the value of that significantly, because these guys are not going to be cheap forever. Right now, all the players I just listed, very cheap, playing at a rate far below what they're producing. By the way, I didn't even mention DK Metcalf. He's not cheap anymore, but he's still young, right? He's still not, age is not a problem. All of our tight ends are sub 30. It's just we don't know who's going to come back or not. There are other pieces as well on this team that should get you as a Seahawks fan excited for what is happening now. We could bring a guy like Jordan Brooks back, and for all his flaws, Jordan Brooks is young, athletic, and exciting. There's a lot going on this team right now. I feel like people in this fan base tend to misunderstand one way or the other what this team is right now. Because you have some of these people who think this team is terrible, ignoring the fact that they've won 9 games in each of the last 2 seasons, which is a winning record. And then you also have some people who think this team has been fantastic the last 2 seasons, ignoring the fact that we've won 9 games in each of the last 2 seasons. The reality is somewhere in the middle here. All right? I think the roster is good. I don't think the roster is stellar or anything. I think we're going to need another offseason to make the roster stellar. There is some stuff we need to do. There is some fat we need to cut. But I think the roster is in a good spot right now because a lot of our top guys, a lot of our exciting guys are young and cheap. Right? Like, if there was a time to tear it down and take a step back and maybe even, quote-unquote, tank, that was 2 years ago, okay? Look at the roster in 2021. 2021, Russell Wilson was starting to slip, and he was 33 years old. Lockett was still playing really well, but he was about to turn 30. You had offensive linemen that were starting to slip. Dwayne Brown was starting to fall off. Brandon Shell had peaked as a player in 2020, 2021. He started to slip, and at that point, he was barely even a competent starter. You look up and down this roster, it's like Bobby Wagner was still a really good player, but he was getting older. You were losing DJ Reed to free agency. Sidney Jones was a free agent. I think Al Woods was about to become a free agent. Kerry Hyder was about to become a free agent. You were going to lose some of these offensive linemen. A lot of the offensive linemen weren't good. Like, you look at this team. This is a team that needed to maybe rip it all down. Rashad Penny was about to become a free agent, by the way. The only good young player on the team in 2021 was DK Metcalf. The only guy you felt really good about going into the future for 2022 and beyond was Metcalf. Maybe Jordan Brooks, but I don't think you could really tell for sure yet. Could go one way or the other. Maybe Darrell Taylor, but you weren't sure about him either because he had flaws in his game and had only played the 1 year where he played pretty good but not amazing. Maybe Damian Lewis, but by this point he had already played a year at left guard and didn't look nearly as good, so you weren't sure about him, and he had missed some games in 2021 as well. So there was not a lot going on this team that got people excited. Even some of the players that were young and we were somewhat positive about, it wasn't great. Like Penny was about to be a free agent. Disley had already suffered 2 catastrophic injuries. There was not a lot going on this team. If this team had decided to rip it down to the studs, they really wouldn't have been missing all that much. This team, you want to rip it down, you want to take a step back, you're losing a lot of stuff that is good and useful. And even taking a step back is hurting you because it's making you spend more money. You waste a year of guys like Walker and JSN and Cross and Mafe and Woolen and Witherspoon on their rookie deals. That's bad business, all right? I understand they're not super duper stars necessarily. There are some guys that might be, like K9 might be headed towards being a top 3 running back in this league. I think that's possible. I think JSN might have a future as a top 10 receiver in this league. We'll see. Maybe we'll also see something like that for Mafe if he takes another step up. Witherspoon, I think, could be an elite corner. We'll see. We're gonna have to let that play out for a year or two. But there is a lot of stuff here that, as a Seahawks fan, I have zero interest in seeing this team just throw away or diminish the value of. So if you take a step back and instead of Geno Smith at quarterback in 2024, you go, okay, we're going to have Drew Lock play, or we're going to have J.J. McCarthy play, or we're going to have Bo Nix play, etc., 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 or Jimmy Garoppolo, or Teddy Bridgewater, whoever. You're also basically saying we're going to take these years where we have these really good players on rookie deals, and we have these other really good players who are relatively young, like DK Metcalf, like I would personally throw somebody like a Julian Love in there, but we'll see what happens this year. We're going to throw away all this possibility for this team to be really, really good immediately because we're chasing something down the line, like we're a team that won 3 games last year. That is something that would make sense if this team was awful last year, and they weren't. They had a winning record with a tough schedule. People are going to have to they're going to have to come to terms with that, I feel like, because a lot of the things that I see some Seahawks fans say this offseason seem to be coming from a place of thinking, man, we were so bad last year, we just got to blow it all up and rip it all down. We weren't, okay? We weren't as good as we wanted to be. We weren't as good as we needed to be, but 9 wins against that schedule is a decent team. It's not a great team. It's not a team that is going to get to where we want it to go, but the foundation is there. The odds are good that the coaching staff did not allow this team to get to where they needed to go in 2023, and bringing in new coaches, untested though they may be, could be the kick in the pants that this roster needs to get over the top. It's possible. I think that's far more realistic than saying, oh, we need to take a step back because these guys just aren't good enough. I think these guys can definitely be good enough. I think there are teams out there with less talent than us that make deep runs in the playoffs. There might be teams out there with less overall talent than us that play in the Super Bowl. So that's my perspective on it. Let me know what you guys think. Tearing it down is bad. Taking a step back is bad. Our best bet is to hope that Geno Smith can ascend to an elite plane when surrounded with really good stuff like we're trying to surround him with. and see what happens. See you guys later. Go Hawks.